Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a topic that, well, many of you have probably thought about: creating and profiting from your own products online. Imagine turning your knowledge, your passion, into something tangible that actually earns you revenue. For this deep dive, we've got a really comprehensive guide called Profiting from Product Creation. It covers, pretty much everything from the initial idea stage right through to marketing and even managing a team strategically. So, our mission today: extract the most vital strategies, maybe some surprising truths from this material, and give you a shortcut to understanding that whole product creation and business journey.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is that this deep dive isn't just about how you create a product. That's important, of course. But it also digs into those often overlooked bits, like, how do you actually market it successfully? How do you
Right.
build a supportive, loyal team around what you're doing? Well, connect the dots, basically, between that creative output and, well, the practical side of building a sustainable business.
Right. So let's start with what our source calls the most important thing in product creation, especially for digital stuff like ebooks. It talks about the priceless experience of authoring. And it's not just, sharing what you know. It's about that feedback loop, that back and forth you get, which is just invaluable for refining what you offer.
Mm.
And here's maybe the surprising part. It doesn't have to be super complicated. The key is really just creating the content and then presenting it the right way,
Yeah.
effectively, for your specific audience.
Exactly. And that effectiveness, it really hinges on focus, intense focus.
The guide really hammers this home. Don't let your attention wander from your goal.
Think
I
about
don't-
that.
If you're writing ebook on, say, cat training, you need to stick just to that. Don't suddenly start covering everything about cats.
Mm.
Your buyers, they're looking for very specific directed info they can use like right away. They don't want to sift through tons of general stuff.
And what's equally critical and often kind of underestimated is the quality and professionalism. This isn't just about avoiding your book getting rejected somewhere. It's about building a real trust with your audience, an irrevocable trust. The caliber, the quality of your ebook, it really depends entirely on how well you actually produce it. That professional presentation, the delivery, they're not just nice to haves. They're absolutely fundamental for your credibility. People need to trust you to even engage.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you're asking for feedback, the guide says, don't just ask, so what did you think? Be specific. Ask about spelling, grammar, ask about the flow, the consistency, ask about the actual usability of the information. The real power comes from taking that feedback seriously, taking it to heart and actually using it to make the ebook better.
Definitely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, your platform, it isn't just like the website where your book lives. It's your whole strategic plan for marketing that ebook. It means you're not just the writer anymore. You're also your own publisher. You're totally in charge of getting the word out. And the guide outlines some really essential electronic ways to reach your readers.
Okay, so how do we get the word out effectively in this digital world? What are the tactics?
Well, a key strategy involves using what the guide calls review books. Platforms like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, they let you do these 2-week lending periods to target specific reviewers, people who can influence others. And Smashwords apparently takes it a step further. They have this unparalleled couponing program, which lets you issue coupons for review copies, even for reviews that aren't, glowing 5 stars, which can actually broaden your reach quite a bit.
Ah, okay. So
Yep.
getting the book into the right hands, people who can talk about it, that's clearly step one.
Absolutely. Then you've got press releases. The advice here is to tailor them. Write multiple versions, each aimed at a particular demographic or geographic section. Don't just send out one generic blast. Publishers also often give you free writer and book pages. These are great spots for your author info, links to your blog, samples of your work, a central hub. And speaking of blogs, the guide strongly recommends blogging. Points to platforms like WordPress.com because they're easy to use, have tutorials, templates, and all that helps with your SEO, your search engine visibility.
I can see how that creates a kind of dynamic home base for everything you're doing.
Exactly. And don't underestimate social sites. Facebook, LinkedIn. They're highlighted for sharing news, images, direct links to your product, and critically, for building that dedicated fan base over time. Email marketing, too, is still a powerhouse. The key is to diligently build an extensive categorized list. Think loved ones, acquaintances, sure, but also publishers, editors, bloggers, reviewers. Then you can send really tailored promotional messages, not just generic spam.
Wow, that's quite a comprehensive outreach plan.
It is. And another strategic tip from the source, publish more than one ebook.
Hmm.
It builds your portfolio right. And then
Right.
you list all your previous titles on the title page of every new book. It
Mm.
creates this nice cross-promotional effect. And finally, maybe overlooked sometimes, but crucial. Get a pro cover designer. Seriously. Especially for digital formats like on an iPad or an e-reader. That cover image, it's often your single biggest sales tool. It's that first impression. It has to grab them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about crafting the product, setting up the marketing platform. Now let's shift gears to that really crucial step. How do you catch buyer attention by picking the best topic in the first place? Our source points out websites are always trying to better their popularity, right, for larger earnings. And using keywords smartly is how you basically direct those potential buyers straight to your digital doorstep.
Right, and this brings up a really important question. How do you actually choose the right keywords? The ones that genuinely connect with people who are ready to buy?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. How do you know the keyword you picked will actually help? Not just bring in random traffic that doesn't convert. The source suggests your finest subject is forever a subject you've passion for, knowledge with, and experience with. Basically, lean into what you already know deeply. Your own life experiences, they offer this sort of unparalleled set of lessons. It's about leveraging your unique built-in expertise. Your unfair advantage, maybe.
So instead of just chasing the latest trend, you're tapping into something authentic, something you own.
Exactly. And the source actually offers this brilliant brainstorming exercise to dig these things up. It says grab a pad and pen, dedicate a strong 30 minutes, no distractions, list everything you're passionate about, things you love talking about, areas you study, your work knowledge, your hobbies, just dump it all out. Also list maybe the 10 greatest troubles you can think of in your home, your work, your community. And this is key. Ask friends and family. What do they think you're great at or know a lot about?
That sounds like a really powerful way to unearth some hidden potential topics.
Totally. And the real magic, the source claims, is what happens after that focused 30 minutes. For the next week or so, your subconscious mind keeps working on it. It starts supplying these really creative topics, often sporadically, like seemingly randomly. You might get your next big product idea while you're driving or taking a shower or just eating supper. The strategy works because you basically planted that seed, that intense request, in your subconscious, and it just keeps churning away in the background.
That's a fascinating take on creative problem solving. Okay, so building on that, once you have an idea, the guide details creating your product using 5 critical steps for top results. First, you need to find an existing market. And that means identifying a group of people who share the same basic problems, who actually have cash to spend, and importantly, have a history of already purchasing stuff related to that issue.
So you're essentially building for proven demand, not just throwing something out there and hoping people want it.
Precisely. Second step, discover what they already wish to purchase. Never guess this part. Research the products that are already selling well. Even better, ask people directly what solutions they're looking for. Once you know that, you can create something desirable much faster. Third, produce a winning sales procedure. This isn't just like a sales letter. It's a basic but effective message. It demonstrates the benefits clearly, promises particular end results, and makes an offer that's too good to decline.
That sales message sounds like the critical bridge then, turning interest into actual action.
It really is. Fourth, focus relentlessly on targeted traffic. Do your homework. Research exactly where your ideal buyers are found online. Then, strategically put your sales content in those places. The benchmark the guide suggests is aiming for at least 0.50 cents for every visitor. If you're not hitting that mark, it's a strong signal you need to tweak your presentation or your targeting. And finally, fifth, you absolutely must have an effective back-end design. See, that first sale often just covers your marketing costs. The real sustainable profit comes from maximizing the lifespan value of every buyer. You do that by continually lining up fresh, relevant offers that they'll want to buy from you, ideally at least monthly.
That really drives home the idea of building a sustainable business, not just chasing one-off sales.
Okay. And speaking of sales, how do we actually use keywords effectively to attract those ready-to-buy customers? The source mentions some specific tools. First, Google.com, naturally, specifically the Google AdWords keyword tool, now the Keyword Planner. The focus should be on identifying ready buyers. Look for phrases that show clear commercial intentions, something like sales course best-selling.
Right, it's about understanding the intent behind the search query, not just the raw search volume. Exactly. Then there's clickbank.com. It's a big marketplace, especially for digital goods, info products, guides, software. You can search by product, type, or location and narrow things down using metrics like gravity, which kind of shows how many other affiliates are successfully selling something, or just by popularity. The guide suggests using it alongside Google's tool for a fuller picture. And finally, here's a really unique strategy the source says few people know about. Shopping.com, search. You can target commercial words there specifically to detect likely buyers, like if you want to sell clothes, accessories, books. Using keywords found on that site helps you pinpoint active shoppers.
Okay, interesting. So this raises the next important question. Once you've got that brilliant idea, you know how to attract buyers. How do you actually structure your product, your ebook, or guide to make it as clear, digestible, and valuable as possible? This is where drafting your table of contents, your TOC, becomes a really critical, almost strategic element. A TOC, simply put, is just that list of the components of your book or document laid out in the order they appear. It can include first-level titles, second-level, sometimes even third-level, depending on how long and complex your work is. The rule of thumb given is, for reports over about 10 pages, you really need one. For shorter things, maybe just a quick list.
Got it. So essentially about providing a clear roadmap for the reader, making sure they can easily find what they need in your valuable content.
Precisely. And a super critical aspect of this is crafting engaging chapter titles. The source actually calls this your unparalleled selling point. Think about it in a crowded digital space, your titles have to do some heavy lifting. They need to stand out. The advice is practical. Research the top search terms across search engines. Combine them, maybe categorize them, celebrities, research, finance, whatever fits. Then use those insights to bake unique selling propositions right into your chapter titles.
So how do you make them truly compelling, beyond just being functional descriptions?
Well, look at your own high-traffic content if you have some already. Talk to people. Listen to talk radio, read the news, look for things that have inherent intrigue or controversy. Use words that are emotion-laden, particular, descriptive. Words that spark curiosity, make the reader ask questions. Like the example given, how to make celestial au gratin potatoes. It makes you wonder what makes them celestial. It pulls you in. Oh, and there's a practical style tip. Keep TOCs under 3 pages if possible. Easier to scan quickly since they aren't usually alphabetical like an index.
And for folks using standard word processors like Microsoft Word, the guide gives some tips on automating this, right?
Yes, absolutely. The key takeaway is leverage that automation. Modern software like Word can generate a professional-looking TOC automatically. This saves you a ton of time, ensures consistency, and frankly, it just looks more professional. It signals you've put care into the presentation, and it makes the content much easier for your readers to navigate. That directly impacts how they perceive the value. You just need to apply the built-in heading styles correctly to your sections, heading 1, heading 2, etc. And the software handles the rest. It even creates those clickable links within the digital document, which is super helpful for navigation.
Okay, fantastic. So you've conceived the product, you've structured the content beautifully with great TOC. Now, a really crucial strategic choice comes up regarding actually creating all that content. To do it yourself or not. Marketers, webmasters, anyone building an online presence, you constantly need fresh material, right? Press releases, reviews, FAQs, web pages, all to drive traffic. And keyword-rich content, like articles or even ebooks, can be a powerful engine for that organic, free traffic from search engines.
Yeah, it's a fundamental fork in the road. It really dictates how you spend your time, your resources, and even how quickly you can scale things up.
So if you decide to do it yourself, the pros are pretty clear. You guarantee the content is exactly what you want, especially if you have this specific mental image that's hard to describe. And obviously in terms of cash outlay, it's cost-free. But the big con is your time. Your time is worth money, right? If spending hours writing takes you away from other potentially profitable activities, well, then outsourcing starts to look pretty attractive.
And outsourcing definitely brings some compelling advantages to the table.
For sure. First off, it can be surprisingly affordable. The source points out you can often find excellent writers, maybe university grads, who offer services for a really reasonable cost like $5 to $10 per 1,000 words, especially when the economy is a bit sluggish. And that immediately translates into major time consumption money savings. You're not spending your own valuable hours on tasks that maybe someone else can do better or faster.
That flexibility, being able to reallocate your own time, that's huge.
Plus, you tap into external talent and expertise. Professional writers, they can often just churn out an article or write up an ebook that fits your needs perfectly with just a few guidelines. And many already have experience with things like SEO writing. It also helps manage overflow. If you suddenly get swamped, independent writers can absorb extra projects, help you meet deadlines, and sometimes bring fresh perspectives. And the flexibility often extends beyond just writing. Many offer proofreading, editing, article spinning, even managing blog comments or directory submissions.
And importantly, it gives you mastery control, provided you set it up right. With a clear project management plan, you have total control over your suppliers. You specify the style, the deadlines, the revision process, the payment terms. The key here, though, is clear and concise communications are crucial. Misunderstandings can waste a lot of time and money.
Right. But there are definitely risks with outsourcing too, aren't there? The source really emphasizes that any work produced, it's going out under your name. So the quality has to be expert quality. You absolutely must request samples before hiring anyone. And probably the biggest risk mentioned is plagiarism. That's called the most dangerous risk.
Mm.
You have to check for originality. Use tools like Copyscape. And the advice is blunt. Never ever pay for plagiarized work. The legal and reputational damage just isn't worth it. So the overall suggestion is maybe experiment a bit. Try both DIY and outsourcing, see what feels right for different types of content or different stages of your business.
Yeah, building on that, ebooks themselves are fantastic tools. Great for selling directly, for building your email list, for building rapport with your audience, even for strategically placing affiliate links. But if you're short on time, which many entrepreneurs are, outsourcing the writing can be a real game changer. The best place to start looking. Usually those work for hire or freelance sites. You can post a job, often for free or a small fee. Just be clear. What's the subject? How long should it be? What's the main goal or aim of the ebook? Now, when you get bids back, remember, the tiniest bid isn't always the best. Don't just jump on the cheapest offer. Always ask for a writing sample. If they have an ebook they've already written, ask to see it. Check their feedback, their references, especially regarding meeting deadlines. That's crucial.
So it's definitely not just about the price tag. It's about finding proven quality and someone reliable.
Exactly. For small businesses, it's vital to list your requirements very clearly. Then compare the price versus the advantage of outsourcing versus just doing it yourself. You might even start by outsourcing more administrative tasks first, just to free up your own time for the core expertise stuff. But for really critical jobs, the guide strongly advises outsourcing that material to a freelancer who's proven, even if it costs a bit more. Focus on their portfolio, references, credentials, work history. And when you're comparing those, find a freelancer services or platforms. Look beyond just the price. What's their reputation? What kind of expertise do they specialize in? What are their risk assessment tools, like escrow services, to hold payment until you're satisfied? Aim to get, say, 3 to 5 solid bids for any significant project.
What about working with local freelancers versus finding someone online, maybe globally?
Local is definitely an option if you're more comfortable with that. Maybe prefer face-to-face meetings. But regardless of where you find them, you need to supply all the details up front. A clear scope of work. Any necessary legal forms, like a non-disclosure agreement. Clear payment terms, any guarantees, insurance details if relevant. And maintain communication. Make yourself approachable to steady communication, the guide says. But equally important, avoid micromanaging. Trust the process once you've vetted them. For bigger projects, regular check-ins, maybe virtual meetings, or even in person if they're local, are highly recommended.
Are there any specific platforms the source mentions that are particularly good for this?
Yes, a couple are highlighted. Elance is mentioned for providing quick access to the world's top pool of ranked contractors in areas like programming, marketing, creative, administrative work. You can either post jobs or browse and select contractors directly. It offers useful tools like time tracking, reporting, secure workrooms, automated payments via cards, PayPal, bank transfers, different payment terms. And their user agreement apparently clarifies things like IP rights and confidentiality, which gives some peace of mind. Freelance.com is another one mentioned. It offers both independent freelancers and consultancy-assisted manpower. What's unique there is they offer job directors who can help you shortlist candidates, verify their qualifications, support both you and the freelancer, and facilitate the project's completion. They handle billing directly.
Okay, so once you've hired these freelancers or maybe even built a small remote team, how do you actually manage them effectively? What are the practical tips for dealing with outsourcers?
Yeah, managing remote workers, especially when you're starting out, can be a challenge. The source gives several key tips. First, check the worker's actual skill and their tools and ability to do the job. Are they competent? Can they communicate clearly in English, assuming that's needed? And importantly, it is likewise all right if you have to teach the jobs you require accomplished. Sometimes investing a bit in training is better than constantly searching for the perfect fit. Quality, the guide stresses, is more crucial than just getting the absolute cheapest rate. Second, think about the worker's commitment. If you need them focused primarily on your project, maybe consider results-founded billing, so per project, instead of purely hourly billing. It aligns incentives better.
Right, paying for the outcome, not just the hours clocked.
Exactly. Third, be realistic. Great help is difficult to find. You might have to try out several individuals before you find someone who's a really good long-term fit. Don't get discouraged. Fourth, stay in contact, especially early on. Don't get stung, as the guide puts it. Use voice chat like Skype when possible. It's often far more efficient than by instant messaging and helps build rapport. If someone consistently falls out of contact or keeps making excuses, don't hesitate to fire them and move on. But conversely, when you find good workers, pay them promptly, treat them well, keep them happy. It saves so much headache down the line.
That communication point feels absolutely central to making remote work succeed.
It really is. And for tools, keep things simple. Google Docs is great for shared to-do lists, tracking what's accomplished, keeps everyone on the same page. Skype, as mentioned, is great for oral communication, much better for complex discussions than typing back and forth. And consider screencasting software. It lets you create short instructional videos showing exactly how to do a task. That's often way clearer than just writing out instructions.
And for managers themselves, especially those maybe new to leading remote teams, what's the big mindset shift the guide talks about?
It boils down to a real dedication to the outsourcing procedure. It's a shift in thinking. Many managers initially just see outsourcing as a way to cut costs, which it can be, but the real power comes when you see it as a way to systematically automate routine jobs, things like data entry, link building, sorting information. When you do that effectively, it frees you up. You can then center more of your energy into more complex interests, like working out your business model or how to acquire more buyers. Well, it's about moving from being bogged down in the weeds to focusing on high-level strategy and growth.
Okay, so pulling all this together, what does it really mean? It sounds like it's not just about getting the product created and out there. It's also fundamentally about building a team, whether they're in-house employees or remote freelancers, and fostering real loyalty. The source really highlights the priceless value of retaining great employees, especially when times get tough. Long-term workers, they build up this incredibly valuable mental database about your business, your customers, your processes. Losing them means losing all that accumulated knowledge.
Absolutely. Think about your own experiences, right? Going into a local shop or cafe, it's frustrating when that familiar face who knows your order, knows your preferences, is suddenly gone, replaced by someone new who has to learn it all again. The core principle the guide offers for keeping employees faithful is simple. Fair-mindedness. It calls it the best one-word prescription. Loyalty, it argues, is often less about the exact dollar amount on the paycheck and more about the employee's belief that you'll protect their job and treat them fairly and equitably.
And what does that fair-mindedness actually look like in practice in a workplace?
It means using objective criteria, not whimsy or pique, to give out rewards and penalties. Your policies, whatever they are, need to be perceivable, consistent, and even-handed. Think, for example, a clear merit-based system for raises or promotions rather than decisions that look like favoritism. Now, specifically on wages, the guide says employees judge fairness based on three main factors. One, what are other local companies paying for similar jobs? The advice, pay somewhat more than your rivals do, especially for your most productive people. Reinforce and retain that top talent.
Okay, even a small edge can make a difference in keeping good people.
Yes. Two, how does their pay compare to others with comparable skills within your own company? Pay differences are okay, even expected, if they reflect true differences in skill, education, seniority, and task responsibilities. Avoid arbitrary gaps. Your pay policies need to be logical, understandable, and defendable. And three, how does the boss's pay and fringe benefits stack up? Don't offend employees by, say, exempting yourself from a company-wide non-indulgence program during tough times. And don't try to hide lavish executive pay or perks, especially if you're asking for sacrifices from everyone else. Transparency matters.
That makes total sense. Beyond just pay, though, the source talks about fostering purpose and communication.
Mm-hmm.
It says, don't lose your purposefulness. Employees in really successful businesses, they're often permeated with a strong purposefulness and allegiance to excellence. This is especially vital when things are financially tight. You can't compromise on quality. The example given, if you run a bakery known for freshness, but start selling day-old muffins when sales dip, you're not just cheating customers, you're demoralizing your staff who have to sell that stuff.
And it also extends to helping employees produce and participate in a bigger vision. There's an example of a vet practice where, even during a recession, the owner allowed employees paid time to work on free animal rescue efforts. Didn't directly boost the bottom line, maybe, but it fostered this fantastic crew of employees who were proud to be part of something more than just a job.
And communication, again, seems absolutely vital here.
Communicate ahead of time and frequently. Be honest about the business's health, good news or bad. That kind of proactive transparency helps prevent employee fears. Will they get the axe next? Which can just tank productivity. It also stops your best people from jumping ship preemptively because they're worried about the company's future.
Okay, the source also really stresses the importance of value your employees. It says people naturally endeavor to do better when they recognize their hard work and originative contributions are noted. Makes sense. And this becomes even more crucial when you're asking for extra effort during difficult periods. The advice is to build an actual employee appreciation plan. But, and this is key, do it with input from your employees. That way, it's something they actually value, not something management imposes that gets brushed aside or begrudged. And be inclusive. Thank everyone involved, not just the person who presented the final result.
Right. And critically, keep appreciation simple, earnest, and cheap. Often a sincere public thank you in a meeting, a personal email acknowledging effort, or even just treating the team to lunch can mean more than some fancy impersonal award. The guide also advises strongly, lead, don't reign, be a frugal, tireless leader, not some kind of favor dominator. Especially in U.S. business culture, which tends towards democratic ideals, employees will share valuable ideas if they respect you as a leader.
Which is just gold for any business wanting to innovate or just survive, right?
Absolutely. Handle all ideas respectfully, even the non-starters. Develop a process so ideas don't just vanish into thin air. And when you are implementing fresh ideas or new policies, involve key employees early on. It helps ensure success and prevents people from subtly undermining changes they didn't buy into. Consensus building is vital, especially for potentially unpopular things like budget cuts. Now, it's still your business, not a perfect majority rule, but that respect and collaboration are key.
It really sounds like it all circles back to creating a genuine culture of appreciation and respect.
Precisely. The source puts it bluntly. Acknowledgement is cheap, spread it out. A common owner mistake is hogging all the credit. That just breeds resentment. Instead, actively foster a culture in which leaders go out of the way to notice everybody's contributions. Use we, not me. Specific ways to do this. Mention contributions in meetings, emails at company parties. Share positive external feedback newspaper mentions. Customer compliments with the whole team. Let the people instrumental in an achievement reap some direct benefits, like giving Webby Award tickets to the web team that won it. Mention everyone involved when talking to clients. And go beyond just, fancy terms and employee of the month type plans. Show genuine value through decent pay, superior work conditions, good benefits, maybe even stock options or employee ownership programs down the line.
And finally, it touches on the simple but profound impact of just being positive.
Yes, don't transfer your own blue mood onto your employees, because that mood can then transfer straight to your customers. Encourage enjoyment and enthusiasm at work. Some simple ways to instill cheer: food, treats, shared meals. Acknowledging birthdays, keep a calendar, have small celebrations. Company swag hats, shirts, mugs, they seem small, but they can show a positive company spirit. Obviously, you adapt these ideas for net businesses, but the underlying principle is the same. Foster a positive, appreciative, engaging atmosphere.
Wow. We have covered so much ground today. Everything from brainstorming that perfect product idea and building out your whole marketing platform to that really nuanced decision of doing it yourself versus outsourcing content creation. And finally, digging into the art, really, of cultivating those truly valuable, loyal relationships with everyone, employees, freelancers, who contributes to your success. This deep dive really shows it's not just about making a product, it's about strategically building a profitable, sustainable online business, one that's built to last.
Absolutely. And this maybe raises one final important question for you to think about. As you venture into creating and marketing your own products, how will you proactively measure those intangible returns? Things like employee loyalty, team morale, genuine customer engagement, the stuff that isn't immediately obvious on your sales reports, but it's absolutely crucial for long-term profit and real impact. How do you track that?